So excited that we are all here tonight because it's taken a year to get it together and to position it in the market. In terms of our proceedings, I will firstly give the word to Professor Piet Nadir, who most of you will assume know. He's the director of the USB Business School, or Stellenbosch University Business School. He will say a few words about the school, and then I will hand over the word to Ariane, Dr. Ariane Sabet. She has come all the way from Italy, from Turin, to be here with us tonight. It's so nice to have you here with us, Ariane. And she will say a few words about the UNSSC, who is our proud collaboration partner in this new and exciting offering on our MBA. Then I will take on from here, and I will say a few more words specifically about the MBA as one of our degree offerings. That's why you're here tonight. And then more specifically, Ariane and I together will tell you what the managing an international organization is all about. This should take us more or less an hour, but it also depends on the questions that you may have along the way. Because we are a smaller group, I think we can allow questions in between, but you're also welcome to hold on to your question to the very end, after 7 o'clock or around that time, before we would then move to some more refreshments and some nice food that we have prepared for this evening. Okay, so with this, I'd like to hand over to Piet to say a few more words about USB. Is this the clicker? Yeah, so can I perhaps add something? We have a few online guests that have signed into we call it the global classroom here at USB. And some of the students that are on the PGDIP program, they know about the global classroom. So we have online visitors, and they are also able to engage with us in the chat room and ask questions. And in order to ensure that they can follow the conversation, we have microphones. And if any of you has a question, we will also pass the microphone to you so that everyone in our global community can hear you.
Thank you. That's the reason why I speak into the mic. Welcome everyone, great to have you here this evening, and thanks to our marketing team to set us up, and again to our colleague from Italy and the United Nations. Great to have you here as well. Just before I show a few slides, and my colleagues will obviously give you the detail, I think it's crucial that we at USB understand that the longevity and continued relevance of the MBA is in our ability to create specializations within the MBA that speaks to specific niche markets. An MBA is a fantastic mid-career degree. The average age at USB is about 35 years of age. It helps engineers or pharmacists or teachers to move into a next phase in their own careers because it provides you with a very good orientation in the base disciplines of management, marketing or strategy or leadership or HR or whatever, or management accounting or corporate finance. But we have seen over the last years, preempted by specific developments in the more mature markets, which is Europe and the US, that enrollments for the MBA as such is slightly dropping in the global south, and the east it is still up on the figures for 2016-17, but it is being renewed by the fact that on the floor, on the basis of the traditional disciplines, we add the idea of a specialization. And Heidi and my colleague will explain to you the detail of that a bit later. But we've decided at this point on two specializations, one in healthcare leadership, and this is very much linked to South Africa, where we hope to see in the not too long distant future, depending on the economic growth and all the other things, the possibility of a national health insurance system that will require even more than now proper management of clinics, of hospitals, of health systems in the private and in the public sector. And then the opportunity arose, about which my colleagues will say more, about contributing to the managing of international organizations, and this is what this specialization is all about. Just quickly, we, as a university in Stellenbosch, will be 100 years next year. USB itself is now 52 years old, about half the age, and I think I can say with fair confidence that we are, in whatever measurement you look at, we are always rated or seen as amongst the very best schools on the African continent. It depends on what criteria you use. We're not into this number one, number two game, but we are into the idea that we want to be an excellent school, and I think that is why the United Nations might have felt confident to approach us, because I think we have the ability to deliver on whatever we agreed to do. So this is an interesting picture of the United Nations. The headquarters is in Turin, their United Nations System Staff College. My colleague will say more about what they do, but we have partnered with them. There's a very nice photo. Here are we, and we always Photoshop this to make Table Mountain look very close. That's why we bring students in from all over the world, and when they land here, we say, no, it was a huge storm and the mountain moved slightly to the north. But this is our campus, and we have become, over the last 2 years, a very, very desired international destination for students from around the world. To give you a sense, there are 52 weeks in a year, calendar year. There are about 28 academic weeks in a year. And in last year, we have received 26 incoming groups from the US, from China, from Africa, from Europe, from all over the world. It gives you, if you take the calendar year, one group every second week, because we can put together in South Africa and here on the tip of the African continent a fantastic program that mixes very good academic work with superb natural beauty, and linked to that the cultural diversity that is so unique to South Africa. So this is part of our growing global footprint, and if you want to see what we believe or we want to become, we want to be a global school that is distinguished as the business knowledge partner in Africa, and you will always see this ambiguity or positive tension in everything we do. We are not the same as Harvard, and to be Harvard here would be wrong, because Harvard responds to the kind of questions that are mainly asked in the developed first world. Not that we are excluded from that, but we are in Africa, and we want to respond to the issues in our continent and the questions that it asks in our continent. Therefore, our excellence lies not in emulating what is somewhere else, but in fact we develop a unique local knowledge content. But we don't do that in a way that cuts you off from the world. An MBA student can walk out of our graduation ceremony and work in Dar es Salaam, work in Cairo, work in Singapore, work in Tokyo, work in New York, it doesn't matter. With a wonderful mix of this. And what is wonderful about this specific specialization is that we link the local to a very pronounced form of the global. And we believe we're going to offer a wonderful opportunity for people who want to migrate in their own careers from perhaps a local to a more global career. And we all know, if you look at democracies around the world at the moment, the space that is filled by civil society, and Arnold, my colleague, constantly reminds us about that, is absolutely crucial. We will not get stability and relative peace and justice over the next decade in the world, and I speak here globally, unless we strengthen the NGO, the civil society, the non-political structures in society to create that vibrant accountability and justice-seeking organizations that is so much required in the world at the moment. So just to conclude my contribution, we are a value-driven organization and we take it seriously. We don't just write them on the wall and show them to people. It is integrated into our way in which we hold each other accountable. And perhaps I should just point at this point to two values. The one is the issue of inclusivity. South Africa has a history of exclusivity. I think we still suffer not here only, but in Africa and the rest of the world. If I look at what happens in the US, if I look at what happened in many other places in the world, new forms of classism, new forms of racism, extreme forms of genderism, if you want to. And we at USB believe that we want to create a community where no matter where you come from, even from Italy, you must feel welcome here because we treat you as a human person and don't ask whether you have a specific belief system or a sexual orientation or a race or a class. You are a human person and therefore you are included. And the other one that I think is absolutely important is the question of excellence. I'm a philosopher, so I know the many difficult questions about what do you mean by excellence, who will judge the excellence, why are you calling yourself excellence? Let's just leave that for a moment. What we mean with that is when we execute something, we measure ourselves against the best practices that is possible. And that is an aspiration that we constantly strive to do. Our academic work is increasingly becoming globally recognized. Our own programs are globally recognized, and I believe we are on a way to become even more excellent. And this partnership will help us to create the global component of our school in a very pronounced way, and we are fantastically happy that that might happen. So thank you very much, Heidi, for allowing me a few words. I'm going to sit somewhere that I can watch the slides as well. I haven't seen the slide after slide 5. So they just told me, Pete, you can speak to the first 5, but then you must sit down. So I'm going to sit down. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, the next slide is yours.
So friends and colleagues near and far, ladies and gentlemen, also a very warm welcome on my behalf, on the behalf of the United Nations Systems Staff College. We're absolutely thrilled, Heidi, to have now this opportunity after a year of intensive work to launch this joint program, and our thanks also go to Pete for allowing for this collaboration to come to fruition today. And the United Nations Systems Staff College, of course, the United Nations, they were born out of a devastating world war. We see from the principles in the charter and the values that you've just displayed here how much also they still ring true today. In a way, the world today, its trends, its challenges and opportunities get mirrored in the UN as well. And there's, of course, a special responsibility for UN staff to respond to them and to respond effectively, efficiently, and with new ideas. And some of the way we work cannot carry too far into the future anymore. We have to find new ways of working, and the UN is trying also to pioneer new ways of working that then again can be absorbed into the world at large. And I think one of these elements we feel very responsible for at the UN Systems Staff College, we are the learning, training, and knowledge management institution for the UN system, for the UN family. The UN, since these beginnings in 1945, has since moved into an array of many different organizations, from the humanitarian, peace and security, to, of course, the development side, the sustainable development side. And in many ways, Africa is at the heart of its operations, both in terms of the mission, but also where UN staff reside. And we notice that also very strongly, that a lot of our offerings are of particular interest to UN staff in Africa. And therefore, it was really important for us to intensify academic collaborations on the continent. And I will say a little bit more why we then chose USB. So the UN Systems Staff College, as I mentioned, training institution for the UN system. We serve about 9,000 beneficiaries annually, so primarily UN staff, but also more and more those we collaborate with, those we partner with. And we have our headquarters in Turin, but we go out into 50, 60 different countries each year to actually go on the ground and to deliver our programs where most of the UN colleagues are resident. We also feel very strongly that the UN expertise is often mostly seen within its technical abilities. that colleagues are able to advise on policy, are able to roll out peacekeeping operations, are able to bring sustainable development more to fruition. And the times, as I said, as they are changing, managerial capacity is more and more important as we move into the next years. And this shift is also supported and driven very strongly by the new UN Secretary General, Mr. Guterres, who has announced 3 reforms. One is the peace and security architecture that will be reformed. The development system will be overhauled. And there's also a management reform in the making. And so what we also feel as one of our main missions at the UN System Staff College, we have it here, our most valuable resource of the UN family, it is our people. And this ability to be agile and to be effective in management as well, because ultimately also prevention of conflict, etc., needs a managerial side to it, that we want to strengthen it. And not only to strengthen it through various interventions and short programs, but also to give an opportunity to have a full degree with it. And the MBA already that is offered by USB has such a strong reputation. It also has a strong international dimension, and what we feel we can add to that is really the knowledge from the UN system, also to bring students more in contact with UN leaders, so that leadership, which is an activity and an action which should happen at all levels, can also be paired with career progression as well, so that you have, on the one hand, more of the ability, but on the other hand also an additional degree that testifies to the knowledge that you've gained. And yes, with that, I would say that the discussions we started last year around how we can marry our two knowledge repositories into a new offering have now come to the stage of the MBA MIO, and so we're very happy to be here.
Okay. Thank you, Ariane. So I think by listening already to Pete and Ariane, it becomes quite clear how well we fit together, because our mission statement says that we develop responsible leaders through well-grounded business education and research. So the UN as an institution has got very similar aspirations in having an impact in society and the world. So already early on in our discussions, we found that there is a good strategic fit between the 2 organizations. And in addition, the target group for this offering sits in Africa. We are here in Africa, and we are looking in particular to those that are managing international organizations, for-profit and non-for-profit, that are operating in Africa. And I will speak later on about a few key aspects that differentiate us, and our strong African perspective is one of our differentiators. So I'm very glad we are going to host this from next year and into the 2nd year of the MBA program. So I've prepared 5 key points to talk us through that underpin why you should choose USB as your institution for the MBA program. The first is around our international reputation. Then I will talk briefly about our focus on leadership development. Then a point that we are proud of, which is client engagement, and I will give a few examples of what that means. Then as a 4th point, the global perspective. It was mentioned by Pete and by Ariane already, and then the African contextualization. So when it comes to our reputation, one of our key aspects that we use in order to build an international credibility and to foster our international reputation are our accreditations. We hold 3 international business school accreditations. They are here on the right-hand side. And these are really quality standards that we have subscribed to. and that influence us in how we are managing the school internally. They give us a performance benefit into the organization, and they give us a legitimacy benefit outside into the global school, into the global community of business schools. And there are about 89 schools at the moment globally that hold the triple accreditation, and we are one of those, and we're very proud of this. Yay. Then our network of top business schools and international agencies, and I quite purposefully include the term international agencies because the UN is an international agency, makes us so reputable. So international accreditations allow us to play on the global stage, but those networks enable the value enhancement for all our stakeholders that we engage with. So for example, our MBA students, they are able to go to our partner schools across the globe, from African partner schools to European to North American, South American schools on their international study module. And we are able to do this because we have well-established partnerships. We are also part of many global initiatives that speak to our mission regarding responsible leadership development, such as the PRME. We have subscribed to the Principles of Responsible Management Education, and other initiatives, such as the Global Responsible Leadership Initiative. But there are other networks that our MBA students benefit from, such as the Executive MBA Consortium, who come here, but our students also go out and join those groups. The Stellenbosch University is very much recognized and globally acknowledged as a research intensity university. And in that sense, we are complementing the UN, because as the strong base for research, we are able to integrate the practitioners and provide students a very good experience of having the research side combined with the application and those that are in practice. Then I mentioned earlier our focus on leadership development. The students that we interview post their MBA experience, they say that the leadership development journey stands out for them. They have honed the leadership skills by looking inwards and by looking outwards. So we are quite known for our leadership journey that we provide to our MBA students. And later on, I've got a slide that speaks a little bit more about the various aspects that are discussed on the leadership module on the MBA and the type of assignments that we use. I think what is quite important at this stage is that we put emphasis on not training just managers. We want to train leaders that are able to go out into the world and make a difference. And we equip them here as best as we can to do this. A point that our students over the last few years have mentioned over and over is our increased use of African-based case studies. And it's been positively mentioned, because through African case studies, we make the studying here so relevant, because it's embedded in the context that our students operate in. While we still have European case studies and case studies from the developed countries, so to speak, in order to teach certain skills and concepts, we have more and more shifted towards African-based case studies. And our students really enjoy this, and they say that this makes it unique and different as well. So what I also would imagine that students coming from the UN network and other international organizations operating within the African context, and those that are joining this stream, that we would be able to harvest even more cases from the students, and in that way collaborate to expand our own base of cases that we can use in our teaching. Because we are also learning from our students. I think learning goes both ways, in particular in a postgraduate environment. Okay, so the responsible leadership process combines steps. We call it me, we, and world, illustrated by the left side diagram. Starts with your own personal reflection. It reflects on how you relate with others and how you relate in society. And there are other modules that speak to this notion as well. It's not only embedded in the leadership development program or the module that is called leadership, because we embed it in many other modules as well. So there's a list of content topics that you can see here that guides us through this particular journey. The methods of assessment are also varied. One of the key points is always that our assignments and assessments are work-based. So students have the opportunity to make them relevant in order to test the knowledge in their own work context. And that's one of the points that Ariane, Martin, and I have discussed, that in particular for a stream, we want, with all streams that we're offering, we want to make sure that it's relevant for the context of the students that they're in. So we are really tailoring a specialization stream because of the option of students choosing topics from their own workplaces. So we're not telling them always what exactly it is that they have to do. They can bring from their own workplace and integrate it into the module. Then, of course, we have many points of reflection on the leadership journey, because reflection is a key element in learning about yourself. And the study tour would form part of this leadership development process as well. If there are any questions, you can also raise your hand or interrupt me if I'm talking too fast. The client engagement. I mentioned this earlier also when I listed those 5 points. We strive to have small classes compared to some of the other business schools that offer MBA programs in the world. We kept our classes at about 55 students. Sometimes we have 50, sometimes we have 60, depends on the format that students also apply for. And this makes a difference. Smaller classes allow students to interact and engage with each other a lot more than if you have to divide your speaking space with 200 students in the classroom. Additionally to this, we foster a culture of engagement. We try to be in touch with our students, whereby lecturers are encouraged and often do go onto social activities and also on excursions with the classes. In that way, lecturers are very approachable here at USB. Martin always says, Martin is the head of the MBA program. He says, you're not just a number at USB. And students that we have spoken to, they confirm this. They're known by name, and some of them build quite close relationships with us and continue to collaborate with USB beyond their degree. We also bring guest speakers into the classroom. We have career services and, of course, a very active alumni association, which fosters the engagement beyond your degree here. The global perspective is certainly something that we want to ensure of. In 1996, when there was a big change in South Africa, that was one of the strategic points that the school, or the leaders of the school at the time, made, is to open up the school to the world, to go out into the world and to bring the world to Cape Town. So this is something that we also embed in our networks, that we foster on a daily basis. Pete mentioned all the international study tours that come to learn about Africa here at USB. The USB faculty goes abroad and teaches at other universities, while we have incoming faculty that teach on our elective programs. And with regards to this relationship with the UN, we have already identified lecturers from the UN Staff College to come and join the delivery on this stream. So this international mobility ensures that our students are really exposed to those global leaders and thinkers in their field. The students that we have are a reflection of the world. We attract many students from Africa and South Africa, but also beyond. And our diversity statistics are changing all the time. The MBA program, for example, has got 60% of, sorry, I just need to check my statistics. The MBA program, for example, has got 1/3 female students, which has increased over the last few years from 25 to 33. I think that's a very good sign in terms of diversity. But also our international student population has increased over time. But the diversity is also something that people bring into the classroom based on their previous work experience and their previous academic experience. So the functional diversity that we encourage in the classroom. Okay, our African focus. We are proud to be a business school in Africa, and we want to be the knowledge partner in Africa. I think our vision statement already demonstrates how important it is for us to have a strong African focus, we have integrated, and I will mention this later again, a module that speaks specifically to doing business in Africa. It's called something else, but it's around doing business in Africa. Our international study module that our MBA students go onto are also including destinations within the African continent. This is a change that we've introduced over the last 2 years. So now for 2016, we have 3 African destinations included, and in 2017 as well for our MBA students. When it comes to the international study tour for this particular stream, however, we are probably going to Italy, to the headquarters in Turin, because the students that we are recruiting, they are most likely working on the African continent. So for the international study module, we're probably going to do a combination between Geneva and Turin. We're working on the details and the logistics. Okay, what else? The USB program portfolio is very wide, and we have an excellent offering that is difficult to beat by other business schools, because it ranges from our core that we started off with, the stream on business management and administration with the MBA as our flagship program, where we have 3 offerings on PG Dip level, MBA level, or master's level, and PhD level. And we've branched out into development finance, for example, and our development finance colleagues are here tonight as well, which is an interesting point for the MIO, because we have a module that is called Finance for Development on the MBA program. So here we are already noticing that a core competence that resides within USB is included in this particular offering. So we are creating cross-program synergies. We also offer degrees in future studies, in management coaching, project management, in leadership, and in financial planning, all on different NQF levels, where you can start at a PG Dip level and make your way all the way up to the PhD program. And some of our students are here that are currently in the PG Dip Business Management and Administration, and that is quite a stepping stone towards an MBA. So it provides you with many skills that will help you to also continue with your MBA program. Okay, then we're focusing on the MBA tonight. The MBA will be offered from next year onwards for the first time with stream options. And Peter already highlighted earlier that there is a need for specializations within a general degree, because it will allow those that are coming from a particular industry to specialize within a generalist program. We will have a stream called the Healthcare Leadership that focuses in particular on the healthcare industry, and then the Managing International Organization, which is providing skills and competencies for those that are working either in the non-for-profit or in the for-profit sector, but with an international organization, experiencing those dynamics across borders. The MBA has got various entrance requirements. You might already know about these, so I won't spend too much time on those. You can always ask us afterwards in the mixing and mingling time we have later on. We do ensure that our students are well equipped to cope with the MBA, because we think it's fair that we have checked you properly so that you are able to succeed. And those processes are means for us to assess whether you have it, what it takes to do an MBA program. It's not a walk in the park, so you have to work hard for it. So we want to ensure that you can. The program options. The full-time program is an offering that takes 1 year, and this is what you do. You devote yourself and you commit yourself to a more or less 14-month program. It sounds like 12 months, but it's actually 14, where you are probably spending 35 to 40 hours a week on studying. For this particular offering, we are choosing the modular or the blended format for those that want to continue to do the stream, whereby the modular and the blended program takes 2 years, and the classes are either on block in a modular format or they are on block and then online in our local classroom for those that choose to do the blended format. The periods are also listed here of the times that the classes take. Modular 18 months, and then the research assignment. The blended takes 20 months, and then the research assignment. What is interesting about the blended format is that you can either come here on campus to be in the classroom, or you can sign in online using a particular software program that we have here in order to have a synchronous learning experience while you are elsewhere in the world. So on the blended learning format, we have students that are signing in from airports if they have to go on a business trip and they so happen to schedule their time when they are traveling, but also those that are in remote areas in South Africa and in Africa. It really provides you an excellent opportunity to join this learning experience from anywhere in the world. At the moment, I'm teaching on the PGDIP in Futures, and we have a student from Singapore joining this PGDIP class. The local classroom looks a little bit like this. You can see some students are in the classroom, and there are more than those that are in the classroom that are outside the classroom, where there is a streaming facility that projects the voice, that projects the lecturer, that projects the PowerPoint, so that the students almost feel like they're in the classroom, and they're able to engage with the students via a chat room. This is a picture of a student. I'm not so sure where in South Africa this was taken, probably somewhere on the northeast side in South Africa, where a student said he's taking part in the classroom, but outside, sitting with his or her laptop connected to the internet. The blended classroom has been hugely successful at USB, and for next year, also for the first time, we're offering the MBA in a blended format. And it seems to be a very attractive mode of delivery. I think this is the program that we have received most applications for so far, or the format, the blended format.
And this was also a big attraction for us to have that access to such a high quality program. So the access in terms of the blended format, the academic rigor that is maintained throughout this program, the diversity, the competency around diversity also that students are exposed to, very important, of course, in the work of international organizations. And that's not something that's just automatic. This is something you have to work with, you have to learn with. And also something that was mentioned earlier around the holistic view of the human being, so that this is a program where you learn, of course, skills, you learn competencies, but there's also the thought leadership. You have to have also knowledge around the areas, let's say, in this stream of peace and security development. So the thought leadership around those areas, but then paired with the leadership competencies that come with it. And I feel that we actually modeled in a certain way some of these ideas of co-creation and diversity and harnessing those elements in that process of getting to this stage with our program. So definitely the blended and the global, and actually congratulations on even today we have our global classroom here to broadcast to the outside.
Yeah, I keep an eye on the chat room.
Yes,
if there are questions.
They are coming. Yeah.
And many of those that are working in a multinational organization are experiencing a global work environment where video conferencing is the norm of having meetings. So in a way, it's just a model of what students experiencing in their workplace already. It's just now in an academic environment. And the difference or the uniqueness of this global classroom is that students are synchronous at the time of the delivery of the lecture. And it's not just an online program where you learn by yourself whenever you have time. You have to commit to the particular time slot that the lecture will be delivered. Is there anything to add or a question?
So is there group work that also then takes place in the same sort of system?
While the lecture takes place?
Not while the lecture, during the course of the MBA program.
Yes.
There is group work, and then you provide me with logins for I don't know what you call it, classroom, an online platform.
Yes. So all of our modules on the MBA program contain a group assignment that requires you to work in your study groups on those assignments. And I think students have found various ways of how to engage with technology. So the Google Hangouts, for example, are a means of collaborating on group assignments, but they can also use other video conferencing tools. The USB, does the USB provide a platform, Amanda?
We use various ways on a video.
Let me keep the microphone with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where they form groups and work in groups,
Mm-hmm.
either online or physically if they live close by. So it all depends, but yes, various ways are possible.
So quite often the groups are also mixed groups. Some are based in Cape Town and some are abroad. So while some may meet on campus, others would log in to the group meeting using technology. It's not that all of them are everywhere in the world. Some might be close by. So the group work on the MBA program is set up in such a way that we plan the groups that they are most diverse, which is a challenge because you need to find a bit of coherence and you need to find ways of how to work together. So from a functional perspective, from a cultural perspective, a nationality perspective, we can put the groups together in a diverse approach. And that also means the location, that they are not all just based in one city. There's another question?
Heidi, I just want to mention that where possible with a blended learning, when it comes to group work, you know, at the beginning of every year, we choose groups, you know, and we will put an engineer, a medical doctor, accountant together. But where possible, we will try, and one of the group members will be based in Cape Town, and that will be in class. You know, so if they choose groups, you know, obviously it will come from all over, but where possible, one person will definitely be in class or in Cape Town.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for adding this point. That's great. Okay, the USB MBA curriculum, you might have seen it before. Students undergo 20 modules in total, of which 2 are electives and 18 are core modules. It's the classical, some of the subjects are the classical ones that you would find in an MBA program, such as accounting, business communication, business and society, and so on. Those that are highlighted here in red are the ones that are modified in order to provide us the opportunity to specialize for a stream. So the first one on the left-hand side is corporate finance, which we are using on both specialization stream to make finance relevant for the sector that the students are operating in. So for the healthcare, it's healthcare finance, something else. And then for the managing international organization stream, it's called finance for development, because the financial models are different if you're working in that environment. The international study module will always be tailored for the needs of the students in the stream. It's also in red. Perspectives on African frontiers is a unique differentiator for us on the MBA, but at the same time an option for us to replace this module with a more stream-specific one. And in this case, we have chosen leading in international organizations as the replacement module. While this Perspectives on African Frontier is still relevant, we've discussed this at length, it will be available for those students on this particular stream to choose it as an elective. So it's not off the radar for the stream, but it's not a core, it's an elective choice. Then research methodology and assignment. This is red because it would be tailored in such a way that students choose a research topic, a problem that they want to explore that is relevant to their work environment. And that's why we're including it as a tailored option for a stream. And in particular for the stream that we're offering here with the UN, the supervisors that will join the delivery of, or the supervisors that are available for students will be coming from the UN system as well. So the students, should they be UN staff, can have UN supervisors from the Systems College. While they can also choose any other supervisors that we have here at the USB. And there you can see all the other modules that we offer. Those that are at the bottom, the ones that are green, they are shared with the PGDIP, Business Management and Administration. For those of you that are currently doing the PGDIP BMA, you won't have to do those again, because they are articulate into the MBA program. It's 32 credits that you already have in your bank, so to speak. That frees you up to spend more time on all the other exciting topics. Because I think we offer so much on the MBA, and often you have the feeling you can't do it all. So you are very advantaged if you continue on your MBA, that you have a little bit more time. The International Study module, just to highlight again, is part of the curriculum. It's not an option, it's a compulsory module, and it will also include an assignment. And it's, of course, also included in the fee that we're advertising. It will have different themes, and students generally choose a theme for their international study module, which happens in the second part of the year. If you do a stream, the theme will be provided to you, because we are tailoring it for the students on the stream. But any other students, they can choose later on which stream is of their interest. And here's an example list of topics that we have included. And it goes to many different destinations across the globe. I will be taking a group to Cairo shortly in October, one of our African destinations. Okay, let's just skip this. The MBA electives, also a form of tailoring your MBA, where you choose from various topics. Here for this MBA MIO stream, we have chosen some electives as well. They are coming on the next slides. But students are welcome to choose any other elective that we're offering here at USB. If you sign up for the stream, you don't have to take the electives for the stream. It's recommended and suggested, but you can choose any of those that are available. The electives take place here on campus. It's in a block week, or it's 8 days. So all students that are currently on the MBA in their second year, for the modular students, they come together, and then you mix and mingle with all the cohorts, which is fantastic because you are able to expand your network of students to learn from and to build a network with. Okay, so more specifically, the first intake for the Managing International Organizations will take place in 2018. In year one, all students will complete the core modules on the MBA that all students that have registered for the MBA are completing. In the second year, those students on the stream will decouple from their class, and they will then join the other students that are on the stream. So imagine you are in the modular blended MBA, and then there are other students in the block modular form. They all come together in the stream in the second year. But they might not have met in the first year. The year always starts with a block. This is the case for year one, and it also is the case for year two. And we've purposefully said that for the stream, it's important that we build a new coherence amongst those that are doing the stream. That's why we want students to be on campus in the beginning of the second year. Then there will be online classes because the stream is only available in the blended format. So those students that may have done the modular MBA before, they switch to the blended format. Those that were already in the blended format, they continue with the blended format, and they know it already. But that is perhaps just an important point to recognize, that the second year will be blended, apart from the first block week and the elective week at the end. And of course, the international study module, which is very much in contact. Can't do this online or blended. Are there any questions about this? Sort of more of a technical slide with the formats. Yes, there's a question here. Do we need a microphone? Thank you, Ariane.
Is there any specific reason for that? Is that because other students from the UNSSC join in, or?
Yeah, so the reason why we want to do the blended, or why we are offering it blended, is to provide access. Okay. And to be able to offer it to as many students as possible, because not everybody would be able to travel to the campus here for a full block week in the second year. there are certain modules that would be favorably taught in a block week, and we are putting those into the on-campus delivery mode, or that 1 week. But in between, there are modules that we think it's very appropriate for them to be delivered in a blended format. But it's really about access in this case.
I think one should just mention, we launched the program here this evening in physical format.
Yeah.
But our market is not necessarily here. I mean, the market will be everybody working in the UN that might be interested in this. So and I think you agree, our hunch is that the second year will be quite an interesting group of students. Somebody from Ghana, somebody from the US, depending on, your enrollment and where you come from. But it will be a highly diverse group. And we hope to have about 10 to 11 students in the first year. If it's more, it's wonderful. But it will not be a big group of 50. It will be probably a smaller group. But I just want to ensure that people understand the value lies not only in what the content is, but in the networks that you build and to learn from one another.
Yes. Thank you, Pete. And I can just echo this. When I did my MBA, I learned a lot from my fellow students that I studied with. So this is a key point in this offering, absolutely. Question on this side?
Sorry, do you have an idea of the profile of students that are becoming from the UN particularly? Because it feels like it would be particularly weighted towards the NPO sector.
Good question.
Or
Thank you.
development.
Ariane will answer this.
And I think this also one of the additional attractions of this MBA is actually that it has a profile already of students who are quite experienced in their different spheres of life. And I think this will also match the UN participants. So UN participants, what we see actually is those, as I said, who are and have technical expertise, but really want to increase managerial expertise and also get a full degree in it. So we have a previous experience also with the degree programs, so we would find actually also quite senior colleagues in that. And then we also have a group that may not have had an opportunity to go for a second degree. And so they will also be joining, but have a long experience in the field and often, maybe coming from also countries where access wasn't so easy at times. Our previous experience with an MA also showed that I think we had out of 25 participants, 24 countries. So it was, very, very varied. And I think what is also, of course, very typical for the UN is that you usually don't work in your country of nationality. So you may come with a certain background, but then your duty station, whether it is New York or whether it is Nairobi or whatever it is, changes as well. So so I mean, from what we know so far is that, yes, it will probably be also a very diverse group in terms of profiles, in terms of what people do and in which sphere of the UN they're delivering their services. Another.
Thank you. I'm a retired former diplomat and spent a lot of time working in Africa in technical aid programs. There's a very big political dimension, whether you're an NGO or a business or a company, that you enter when you enter any place in Africa. So how do you deal with the power structures? Because I don't see, it's not that obvious in what I've seen in the course content. And how do you deal with the cultural dimension, which is very, very strong and very important? I mean, protocol and etiquette is there just to avoid cultural conflict. It's sort of a mechanism that has been developed over a long time, actually to bridge that gap. But in a course like this, it seems to me that you will have to have a social anthropology, and you'll have to deal with societal aspects which are not that. I don't see how you deal with it, whether it's in the interaction with the students. I'm not sure that's sufficient.
Thank you. Maybe Heidi, you also have, but it's really an important point because this issue of automatism, I said, we also see that in the UN, that somehow you think, we're all, for example, in the UN and we're all diverse, but we all, know how to work together because we have the same aspirations. There is no such automatism. And so this idea of cultural competence and where does it come from, and both what is and what we want it to be. So how do we also shape the culture? And one element is, of course, also the power of the individual to shape organizational culture as well, if that individual in a leadership position exercises that power. So this only answers it partially, but yes, this is a very big complex. We have leadership in international organizations as one of the modules, so we learn about the challenges that are the international organizations face today. We have, as humanity, of course, moved from organizing ourselves in family units to tribal units to national units, and we sort of are at a tipping point where we notice international organizations are actually becoming increasingly important, but there's a lot of learning space that has to be filled until we can make that jump, and so there will be spaces in the program also to sort of see where these gaps can be filled. But I don't want to say everything about the MBA. Also, the first year you might want to add, or Pete. Yeah.
Very important point, and we have spoken a lot about political science, anthropology, history. Those are very important aspects to understand. It's difficult to bring all of that. You can't make a module for each one, but I want to also just assure you that in our standardized leadership module, a significant proportion of the time is spent on self-leadership, and then the issue of, the old language is managing diversity, whatever you want to call it today in more modern language. So we do spend a significant time, and not only theoretical, we in fact do, as we've said earlier, we try and force students into situations where they are uncomfortable, because they don't work with those that look like them, think like them, and come from the same background. So in a way, it's an experiential learning, but obviously we're an academic institution with a little bit of theory behind it. And as you know, there are many theories that help us. So I think as we go along, we will also learn to make this better. But I think the point that you made is absolutely spot on, and we'll have to take that very seriously.
I just wanted to add, there's a specific response. I can't turn around, but I think you can hear me. The specific response is in one of the courses, and that's Perspective on African Frontiers. I know that it's an elective at this point. It's mandatory for all MBAs, but having an understanding, and I think you mentioned it, as to how do you do business in Africa. But what we deal with there, if we just zoom into it, is the cultural diversity, the anthropology, understanding the opportunities and risks from an African perspective, and looking at, for instance, if I zoom in, the Nigerian tribes, how does that interplay? Hausa, Fulani, Igbo, Yoruba, specifically in that space, how does that affect how you do business? If you go to Cameroon, if you go south in South Africa, if you go to Eastern and Central Africa, the different tribes that exist, how do you then come in as a player in terms of business and engage? There are things that you need to know, nuances. You cannot just go in there. There's cultural norms. And so just to equip the students better, to have an African perspective and not just come out of the module with a kind of a general African perspective. And so in that course, Perspectives on African Frontiers, you deal with risk, opportunities, the cultural elements, the geography of Africa. You'd be surprised to find that many Africans don't even know the 54 countries, where they're located, what's happening in the different African societies. So I think in there lies a partial portion of your answer.
Thank you, and that's why it was also important for us to preserve that option for those who want to dive deeper into it.
Yeah, thank you. So we did a market analysis where we interviewed members of the United Nations system in middle and senior management roles, and the global diplomacy, or diplomacy as a skill, definitely came up in those interviews. It wasn't as highly rated as some of the other skills that they were looking for. The other skills were mostly around leadership skills, which touches a little bit on this diplomacy question, and then on strategic thinking. So the leadership, strategic thinking, and managing across borders was a key skill that they said they would need to that they want to see embedded in this offering. We also have electives that are including diplomacy, for example, where students are able to branch into. We've got a faculty member that has specialized on diplomacy if students find they're not equipped enough on the African frontiers.
I just want to say, what people don't understand about diplomacy, it's the art of defining the common ground and then trying to get people there. That is essentially what diplomacy is about. That's why it's so important in places of competition and conflict that you have the skill to find that common ground, identify it, interest people in it, and move them there. And I think it's a critical part of this course. I really do.
Yeah. No, thanks for your input. Okay. Good. I see there is some food that has arrived, so I just want to make sure that we cover the key points for this evening. The target group was already a question that was asked earlier on. It's certainly all professionals in international organizations that have a number of years of experience. And the students that we find enrolling on the MBA program, 35% of them have 7 to 10 years of work experience, and around about 35 even more than 10 years, 11, 12 years of work experience. We always require at least 3 years, but we actually don't have students that sign up with just 3. They usually have 5 or more years of work experience. And with regards to those that are working in the non-for-profit sector, Ariane has mentioned it, it's often those that are in expert roles, but they want to shift into more strategic and leadership positions that we would want to attract for this particular offering. To give them the grounding in all functional spheres of business, but also the opportunity to hone their own leadership skills in working together better. And I think those points that were mentioned already earlier, there would be key aspects that we would want to see as learning outcomes. The specific stream modules are, for this one, international organizations leadership. It will also talk about the history of some of those non-for-profit and how they can shape society and the power within. Then finance for development. And I would like to encourage my colleagues to also add points to this particular offering. We decided to include this because in this space that those in non-for-profit organizations and development agencies are operating in, they find themselves in a resource-constrained environment. So looking at finance with a developmental focus was a key request that we have found in conducting surveys and interviews for this specific offering. But if you have questions, then we have one of our colleagues, Ashanafi Fanta, here to also answer questions. And then those electives are identified as suitable electives for this particular stream. Students are able to choose others, but those are recommended. And I was glad to hear from you that perspective on African frontiers should give the students a solid grounding into those spaces within Africa or with those different countries. International ethics is also an aspect that students have requested, and I think Ariane, in a different offering for executive level, you found that this was a key element in those programs. Could you expand a little bit about this particular module?
So ethical dilemmas come in big and smaller dimensions, and of course they add up and they add, they create the culture that we move in and our behavior. And international organizations, of course, have their own ethics codes, which will be one aspect of this offering. But the other is really how to shape ethical behavior within your units, within the work you do, and how that also has to sort of project outward as well. So, of course, there's always the internal dimension, but then what is it that you do with your work that goes outside? What are the key indicators that you have to keep in mind when you make policy recommendations, when you shape the plans for different countries, etc. So it has been very well received in our various, as you said, executive offerings, and so we want to bring that option also here. And we think it's useful whether you work within a full international organization, intergovernmental organization, whether it's an NGO, but also in the business sector, it could be relevant as well. So, yeah, that's what we do.
And it builds on some of the modules that the students will have done before. Business and society, for example. So this is a deepening and a continuation of some of the topics that they would have been exposed to, but then in a different context. So one of the electives to choose from. This is a summary of what students will gain once they've completed this MBA qualification and also this particular stream. You will be more equipped to work on a senior level. We always find that students come out of the program with an increased level of confidence because they're able to hold conversations across the board. All functions are integrated into the program. You will have had time to really grapple with the concepts and the theories, work on it in multiple assignments, that you just are a lot more confident in asking questions on various levels within the organizations and to provide ideas and suggestions. The lead responsible, or lead responsibly, certainly a key component in line with our mission statement. We want all our graduates to be able to apply responsible management practices. That includes ethical, sustainable, and responsible practices. And this is one of the learning outcomes that indeed we have integrated in all our programs here at USB, and we measure this. We have pre and post assessments to check whether the students leave this institution more aware and more conscious of those decision-making opportunities. Think critically. We always encourage students to ask questions and to challenge even our lecturers. So we would always encourage to think critically. The students have to provide this in all their assignments, that they would have looked at various sides of the argument before making a conclusion. The function globally, I've touched on it earlier. While we're at the tip of Africa, this degree will definitely equip everyone to function and operate on a global level. Yeah, the last point, to solve complex business problems. The world has changed. Indeed, it's not just complicated, it's more complex. And as a manager and a leader, you need to hold this uncertainty and ambiguity. We don't always have the right answer straight away. So often we need to probe and to see what is the reaction before we can actually find a solution to a problem that we didn't have before. So this is what you should gain from coming to USB and graduating from the program. And this was the formal part. Now we have time for some more questions. Unless your tummies are grumbling and rumbling. So please spread the word. We're going to offer this stream, and we want to have as many students as possible so that we have a great diversity in the classroom, because it really is, and I echo what was said earlier, that the diversity in the room enhances the learning experience. So spread it in your networks, tell everyone about it, and students can decide in their first year whether they want to branch into a particular specialization area. You don't have to decide up front. It's flexible, but if you are considering a particular stream option, we like to hear about it, just for our planning purposes when you apply. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so as a last step, I would like to say thank you so much, Ariane, for coming and visiting us. And we're looking forward to seeing you again with students. And in fact, you will also be delivering a module with us. Yes, right, yes, so she will be back for sure. So thank you so much.
Thank you. The thanks is all ours. I have to say it's marvelous and it's a great offer. So it can only roll out excellently. So we're very happy that we have this now, this collaboration. We have quite a few academic collaborations with Princeton, with Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, for example. But so we feel this is really unique to have now this USB MBA together.
Great, yeah. Thank you all for coming. And one of the things that our international visitors always say when they come to USB is that there's such good food here. So I wish you a good appetite and that you enjoy the South African hospitality. Okay. Thank you. Did we? Oh, it's 1:15. Oh, we actually.
Let's take this off.
actually on time. Yeah. Should we take a picture, the three of us? Oh,
Should we have, let me put this away.
oh this is heavy, huh? Oh, the United Nations.
To show that we are surrounding the United
Now you've got the PowerPoint a little bit on your face.
Yeah. Should we go there?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a wonderful place to be.
Thank you, Amber, for coming. Yeah. Fantastic.
It went very well.
Yeah, I was concerned that it takes too long, but we actually are 7:15.
No, I think one has to decide whether you want to provide more detailed information or only an overview, and sometimes you must be in the middle between the two. You can't give too little, and people don't know what's going on, but if you give them too much, they think you're getting overloaded. I think it was a good mix. It was a good mix. And the fact that you were here was very important.
Oh, yes. Yeah. No.
So thank you
Wonderful.
so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we will keep our hand on the marketing and make sure. And if there's any place where you would require, assistance from me or my office, you just call on me. We might want to do something somewhere else.
Yeah,
we can do something in Turin.
Yeah. If there's something in your network, even
you want to launch something
on the African continent, then we can.
Or we can do something in Ghana
send,
where we have strong links. You just talk to Owen, and we will fund it from our perspective.
Yeah, so if you will let us know, because our faculty is all over the world.
Oh, yes.
We have faculty at the moment in Belgium. So if there's an event in Italy, we could easily ask that person that's already traveling.
Have trips planned. I mean, a lot. My diary for next year. I'm in Germany in January. I'm in Germany in March again. I'm already in 2 places in Africa. So there's always an option.
Yeah.
And we also can do maybe a webinar broadcast,
Oh,
because
yes,
a lot
that's
of
also
our contacts
We actually did
are all
say that
over.
we would also have a webinar. But yeah, thanks.
No, good.
Great,
But there
great
are
idea.
people that would like to
Hello. Healthcare leadership. Okay. Ah, right. Yes.
So she knows all about it.
Okay. But I see you over there. Yeah. So I've switched it off. Did I not switch it off? Ah, okay.